You're still watching Better You Today on the network service of the NTA. And today I have with me Ruth Egbe. She is an author, HR consultant, and a personal development coach. And we will be discussing toxicity within the workplace. You're welcome on the program.
Thank you, Yetunde.
A lot of people do not know what constitutes toxicity within the workplace. Can you put us through some of the behaviors that are considered to be toxic?
What constitutes toxicity is, like you said, behavior, but negative behaviors, things around personal conflicts between employees in the workplace that impact their lives, their well-being, and also impact the environment and also the viability of the organization, like how the results are, the performance of people, what they are doing, how they can work. So basically, it's the negative behaviors, personal conflicts between employees that impact their well-being and the viability of the organization.
What are the common types of toxicity within the workplace that most people experience on a regular basis?
Okay, so because we're talking about well-being now, so and negative behavior, so we talk about things around the verbal violence or verbal conflict. When we're talking about verbal things like threats, things like abuse, verbal expressions, from between people or from one person to the other. So verbal expressions constitutes toxicity because if there are negative words spoken, if there's abusive words spoken, that's a constitution of verbal abuse. There's physical violence because when you push people, when you shove people around and, someone who maybe is stronger, physically harasses someone who is younger, it can constitute toxicity because it affects the well-being of the person coming to work. You can think about psychological manipulation. So when somebody's behavior kind of is imposed somehow without words, without physical, your behavior, the way you look at someone, treat the person, actions basically around the person can constitute toxicity when, it's like manipulative or it's overbearing psychologically on the person. Then you have things like harassment, sexual harassment, especially yes, that's part of toxicity. Different things that affect the well-being, different things that make people feel uncomfortable in the workplace. All this, constitutes toxicity. It could also involve bullying. That's one thing. When somebody takes their power, uses their power against others, and bullies them into doing things so bullying is also a very big part of toxicity, and it usually happens when there's imbalance of power.
With all these experiences, this toxic relationship at the workplace, how can one be productive in that process? Is it possible to be productive?
In every case, really, a person needs to. Very, very important. If it analyzes the source of the toxicity, it could just be a person, an individual. It might not basically go organization-wide. So if it's a person who you're working closely with, and that person is constituting toxicity to your well-being, you find ways to distance from that person as much as is in your power. So if there are toxic personalities in the workplace, so what I would advise the person to do is, if you don't have close working relationship with the person, try as much as possible to avoid it. So that's the first level. You look for how to avoid it. And it's very important that people avoid toxicity in the workplace as much as they can. And then you now think of, when we talk about the second thing to do, basically, is to find a safe place to express.
Okay.
You have to be able to express yourself to someone, or just process what you're feeling from that to really understand what it means and all that. And then you report it. Very important to report such toxic behavior towards you, or whatever it is. Report it to the authorities or whoever it's in a big position to.
But if you report sometimes, it might not even have any effect on you. Maybe it will just cause you more harm. But that's what I think.
Exactly. So that's where, when you in such cases, this is because I was coming to that. I'm just taking it step by step based on the level.
Right.
So if it's organization wide, that means it starts top down. Those ones are very, very difficult to avoid because it's all encompassing in the organization. It's not like a bottled up silo toxic. So there might be some departments that are toxic. You can excuse yourself from all that. But if it's organization wide and it's deep seated, then you need to begin to think about an exit plan or whatever it is that will get you out of there fast as possible. So when we talk about reporting, it might not just be reporting to the authorities within.
Okay.
You need to, because most of the behavior could constitute criminal behavior that you can report to authorities outside, which, it's important to do, because whatever is happening to you can also be happening to others, especially if there's life or some risk, serious life-threatening risks or highly psychologically threatening risks involved in that. So it should be reported. And then exit planning is actually what someone needs to do. You just get out of there. Assess the level of danger and get out of there as well, because there are other workplaces, there are other places you can work. I know there are people who are kind of forced to remain in such places because they don't have a choice. But people really need to weigh the implications of remaining. Someone might say, okay, because it's not affecting me physically, my life is not at risk. You forget that psychologically it has an impact and it can affect them badly. So we encourage that these things people should be, in the cases where authorities are not involved, when it's reported, such interventions can happen that can, change everything all through and, make life better for people. But these are the steps to take. If you measure the risk involved, please, if it's something that is highly risky, you take it out. If it's something that you can manage it for a while, you think about, and also learn lessons. If it's something that is not too impactful to your well-being, so learn the lessons you can learn and then work on an exit plan.
In a case you cannot avoid toxicity within the workplace, what measures can be taken by the organization to curb the level of toxicity within the workplace? When
there's communication, when there's free communication, feedback is given, people can talk and report things without risk of being taken, of getting like a slap back for their reporting. So organizations need to create channels for anonymous reporting, feedback of these issues, so that it can be investigated and so that the toxic personalities can be identified and removed from the system. Because the more you remove toxic people, the less toxic an environment is. So it's the people within the environment that makes it toxic, and then the leadership enables that toxicity. So it's important for the leadership to support whatever process, to make channels available to curb it, to get people to report, and when people report it and something is done about it, so if there's an implication, that person is removed and all that, they see that this is a negative behavior and people can actually know that the organization is doing something about it, and then the others who would have done it will see the example and not do it.
That is so insightful. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And we love to have you on our next episode. We now go on a short break. Better You continues shortly.